Hey guys, welcome back to Spy Plays. Today we're looking at the Vile Storm. This is not your normal Thrasios Vile Smasher deck. It looks to win fast, and if it can't, get some super sneaky lines in. This deck has been super fun to pilot, and I hope you all enjoy. Make sure you leave some comments down below on your thoughts about the deck, and subscribe if you enjoy the content. Hey, welcome back guys. We're doing our deck tech on the Vile Storm. This has been a really cool Storm deck, built by our very own Alex. And we have John here as well. How are you guys doing?
I'm doing great, Jesse. How about you, John?
I'm doing good. How about yourself? How about yourself?
Pretty good, pretty good.
I'm pretty excited to share this deck because I've been kind of working on this somewhat independently, or I guess like in secret for
Like 4 months now.
Yeah,
several months. So it's good to finally get this out on the channel and share some thoughts about it.
Oh, for sure. It's been doing really well. We're gonna go into basically the just rundown, like what kind of deck it is, why you'd play this over other decks, the win cons, and then toward the end of the video we'll be getting into the like little side packages that we have in the deck
and
like
individual card discussion.
Yeah, more in depth. But anyways, so what kind of deck is this, and why would you want to play this deck?
So this would fall under the Turbo Ad Nauseum archetype, but really I'd consider this more of a 4-color Storm deck.
Right.
You're trying to. The main strategy is you're leveraging all these really great enablers like Ad Nauseum, Peer into the Abyss, all of the wheels, Yawgmoth's Will, Necropotence, and you're trying to just get all these cards, jam in a win. So that's the turn 2 too slow method of winning. But there's also a fallback sort of pivot plan where you're able to play out Thrasios, hold back a little bit, play this slower game plan, and maybe you can sneak in something like a Final Fortune or a crop rotation for Emergence Zone on someone else's turn and try to win then. So you're extending the viable range of this deck, really, instead of being locked into, I'm going to win on these first 3 turns, and if not, it's going to get hard for me. Well, instead you're shifting into this role where, okay, I'm holding back more, I'm sandbagging, other people don't really know what I have in hand, and I'm going to maybe go in on turn 5 or something like that with double protection.
Right, I think you tagged it
or
here.
in between turns.
You tagged it here,
Exactly.
so we'll go over just the basis of the deck. It's obviously a Underworld Breach, Oracle, Brain Freeze type deck. These are the main win cons. You got the Underworld Breach, Brain Freeze LED, Thrass's Oracle, Consultation, Tainted Back. So just the basic cEDH stuff. Like if you guys have been playing the format for a little bit, we have to go over that just for people that are new.
This is very standard, right? Underworld Breach is by far the strongest combo line that you have. I think that's fairly obvious if you're playing a lot of these Storm decks in the format. Thrass's Oracle gets a lot of flack, but the reason why that card is good is it gets through a lot of the stacks, and it's a very simple, compact combo. But Underworld Breach is a lot stronger in terms of being able to recur value and being harder to stop in certain ways.
You get to later in the game when you have cards in graveyard, and Breach just becomes a 1 card, two mana win con, right?
Right. A lot of times
I will search for this and just play it, and I win the game, right?
Yeah. Right. A lot of times you're forcing them to have the Odawara or the Boseiju on it because your graveyard has counter magic in it, and you have the necessary cards where you're just able to combo through and fight them 1v1. It doesn't matter when you have 1 or 2 counter spells because I can just use the same 2 over and over.
Right, all packed. Right, I'll exile another 3 cast packed again.
Right, yeah. So it's the combo is very tried and established. So we got that obviously, but I mean the main idea of this deck, which is cool, is this is kind of the replacement to Ikram, right? That's the biggest deck inspiration you got from. It's the same colors. They're both partner commanders. These are just 2 cheaper partner commanders that don't, gain you the life, but they're way easier to cast, right?
Yeah, and this is part of the Ikram lineage, right? Yeah. This originally started when I was playing Ikram for a long time.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
I felt that the deck had some weaknesses, I guess I would say, and I felt like I could shore that up better with game plan.
Right?
Yeah, So this was another issue that I think I fixed with this deck. If you look at the mana requirements for this deck, it's actually pretty spread out. This isn't like certain other decks where it's multicolor, but a third of the cards are blue, and 25% are black, and 15% are red, something like that. No, this is This is fairly even, as you can see right here.
Yeah.
And I've had to make some mana-based concessions with that, but I think overall it's worked out. With Ikram, I had some issues with that, and I've just been continuously refining this and honing in. And yeah, I've gotten to that point even on 26 lands. It's about as low and slim as you can go on that.
Right.
So what kind of things does having Thrasios in the command zone as a draw engine let you be able to do rather than having Crom per se?
Right.
Yeah. So here's one of the nice things about Thrasios. Okay, let's kind of take a look point by point of these commanders. Let's say Thrasios versus Ikram. Let's start with Thrasios. What are the strengths? Low upfront mana investment, so you can potentially just tempo out this Thrasios and pass a turn, and people aren't going to look at you too weird for that. Thrasios enables Mox Amber, Culling the Weak, Diabolic Intent, Fierce Guardianship, and Deflecting SWAT as early as turn 1 or turn 2.
Those are very big, very, very big. Similar to Rog, it's kind of this is
like 4-color Rograk. I joked about that for a long time, or calling this baby Ikram, but it really is true. He does fill that same role if you need him to.
Yeah.
A bad Rograk is still a good card.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And Thrasios has still the upside of if you're in a very bad situation where you just need to grind somehow, you are. I have seen it happen where you're just able to activate Thrasios and still get that.
It's totally true,
card.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, I've never liked Thrasios' activations of, you're often spending 4 mana to cast Opt, but it's good enough in a lot of these cases.
It is good enough.
I feel like it allows you to hold open mana and not look too suspicious. Anytime you hold open all of your mana and you're playing Ikram, when you have 5, all of a sudden everybody just has eyes on you because they're okay, why did you not cast your Crom? And even though Crom it can be a good draw engine and sometimes it's not, people are still expecting you to do so.
Right.
But with Thrasios, you don't really have that problem. And when you don't cast Vial Smasher, people are not oh, what is he? He's holding up.
Yeah, Vial Smasher is pretty...
No, it's totally true.
Useless,
so here's think about the scenario. Okay, you're playing Ikram and you want to resolve an Ad Nauseam on the stack. And let's say you have 6 mana because you have Ad Nauseam and 1 protection spell. Okay, so you pass the turn. You've played out neither of your commanders. Everyone's going to be looking at you now. That 1 piece of protection might not be enough. You do this with Thrasios. What does that look like? That looks like an activation and a counterspell or 2.
Right. I think also...
It looks like it could just be you That's the thing. So you can't dedicate yourself to just saying okay, well, I'm going to sacrifice tempo here with the assumption that, I'm going to get him here, because it's not going to work out.
Right.
Yeah, and not only that, but in those games where you do need to wait for the perfect moment to go off, having Thrasios out means that you can do so and expect that even if the moment doesn't arise where casting Ad Nauseam on another player's turn is right, you still have that option of activating Thrasios to try and gain some advantage.
Right. It's totally true. And I mean, you just have these sneaky plays where you're playing at instant speed, you're on someone else's turn, and you go okay, well, I have some number of mana open, cast Culling the Weak on Thrasios, cast Ad Nauseam, or you'll go, okay, I have enough stuff, I'll activate Thrasios, I saw something I want, okay, Final Fortune, or I'll do crop rotation into Emergent Zone and try to win on the spot.
Yeah, I think a really big upside to this as well is that this deck is usually a called Curious Control. So people will look at your deck immediately, and if they've never played against you or played against this version of the deck, which they probably haven't because it's pretty underrated, they're just going to assume you're just playing Curious Control, and they're going to be oh, cool, he's a control player. And then you just start dumping your hand. They're kind of confused, oh, he must have had a good hand. And then you Final Fortune on someone's end step or Emergent Zone, and they're oh my god, wait, what the heck, this is a turbo deck. Yeah. And so it kind of has that Kenrith feeling.
From turn 1 onwards after what you've done, the effect of changing people's mulligans is so powerful in a format that's defined by having a ton of your interaction slots dedicated to pieces that are essentially sideboard cards. Right. If you look at other formats and you look at Chain of Vapor and Abrupt Decay and Flusterstorm and Miscast, all cards that were playing a lot, these are cards that are dedicated to sideboard slots.
Right.
In higher powered formats.
I will say it has the Kenrith effect in a way, but with Kenrith, you basically when you go up against a Kenrith, you're I don't know which version they're playing. This
Yeah.
version's not popular at all, so like usually people immediately assume Curious Control, but like even if this version were to get popular, like you would still have to sit down and go, are they playing the turbo version or are they playing the control version? You still wouldn't know, you know? So it's still
Yeah,
that,
it's
like,
true.
that factor.
You have a bit of plausible deniability there.
Mhm.
And the thing is, I mean, Thrasios Vile Smasher Turbo is a deck concept that people talk about every so often. They'll throw it out there, but
Right.
you don't. When you ask people about it, you never get like a list or any elaboration or something like that. But yeah, if they assume you're Curious Control, they are probably in for a really rough game because this is the opposite. I'm playing Defense Grid.
Right, yeah, this is one of the only freaking Thrasios decks.
This is maybe the only Thrasios deck I've seen playing that card.
Defense Grid. Where is it? Protection. There it is. Yeah, I love Defense Grid. It's such a cool card. Yeah. Anyways, we can go on to also, I guess, compare this to like, why would you also want to play this over maybe like a Rog Sai or a like Blue Farm? What are the big discrepancies there? Well, so we'll start with Rog Sai.
Yeah,
that's like the big deck right now.
So I think I can kind of start off by saying that this deck occupies a spot somewhere in the middle between Rog Sai and Blue Farm.
Yeah.
So you're taking the sort of like the option of like pivoting into a different game plan from Blue Farm, where that deck likes to play out Tymna, try to grind for cards, and you're playing like this sort of mid-range game plan, but you're still secretly a Storm deck. And Rog Silas is also just sacrificing a lot of that aspect to go faster. So I think this is sort of a happy medium. This deck, like, you may not think it at first, but the green adds a lot of mana acceleration.
Really that is does. I will say green is pretty underrated.
To Rog Silas in terms of its actual like fast mana production.
I don't think like
quite have the same, but it's actually very close if you look at the numbers.
It is pretty close, yeah.
And this is head and shoulders above any other Grixis deck in terms of speed. Like this is really second only to Rog Silas because you look at what does green offer you for these this mana acceleration. You get Manatorx, you get Tinderwall, you get your Spirit Guide, you have Culling Ritual, an absolute bomb.
That's a big reason, yeah.
You can Worldly Tutor for Dockside. That's like that counts as another piece of fast mana, I think.
I agree. Yeah.
You also have Crop Rotation to try to find an Ancient Tomb, which can be a ritual in a pinch. I'm not going to say I've done it a lot, but it is a viable option. Right. And of course, you have Carpet of Flowers too, which you can debate if that's like fast or slow mana. I mean, I kind of consider it slow mana because it's not guaranteed.
Right.
But
it's still a great card.
Its ceiling is fast mana. I'll say that.
Looking at it, like it. I mean, I have the Epic Storm in paper, and like looking at this, it looks very similar to that deck in the fact that you are playing these like green cards as well, like the splash green for like the Carpet, the Abrupt Decays. The Mana Dorks aren't the same.
Veil of Summer, yeah.
Veil of Summer, like those little splash green actually adds a lot, and that's why like, you know, the Epic Storm and Legacy isn't just Grixis. You know, you get a lot from these green cards that people kind of underestimate.
Ant is doing the same thing with the live sideboard cards also, just because that adds a lot of flexibility with your options, right? Like these cards like Abrupt Decay and Culling Ritual, they're pretty good at breaking through stacks and troublesome permanents.
Yeah. And while I'd say this deck like isn't quite as fast as Rog Silas, I think it is very comparably so, to the point where if you're ahead on turn order, you should almost always expect to be able to like attempt to win faster than them.
Right, just as fast, yeah, for sure.
And also, unlike Rog Silas, you do have this backdoor with the Thrasios game plan against mid-range decks, where you can keep a hand that's like, okay, well, my plan is to try to sneak something in and crop rotation for my Emergence Zone and go off on this guy's turn or something like that.
Yeah, I will say, since we're finishing off the comparison there, I guess now we can get to the comparison of like why this over, Blue Farm if you're going to be playing the grind plan.
Right.
And for me, when I see this deck, I see the like Crop Rot, Emergent Zone, Final Fortune, like Necropotence package, Dark Petition. I mean, we'll get into that, but like, that's probably the main thing, is you're more instant speed than the Blue Farm deck, and you can kind of play around that.
Speed, and you have more consistency to your primary game plan, right?
Okay.
Yeah, I would agree. So one of the things I think with comparing this to Blue Farm, you don't have the same sort of stamina in the long game as Blue Farm does, because
you don't have dominance.
It's such a strong card, right? So blue farm can fight forever.
Right,
That's
yeah.
kind of what's going on.
Yeah.
This deck can't fight forever, but also doesn't need to in a lot
Exactly,
of these
yeah.
situations. You're able to open up the window large enough that you're able to sneak through.
Yeah.
Getting that window is like really nice. I think the window of opportunity in this deck is a little bit higher as well.
Yeah, agility is
because-
the name of the game.
Yeah, it is more agile in the fact that the emergent zone is one hell of a drug. That card is
And Final
insane.
Fortune.
Yeah, and
It's
Final
so
Fortune,
good.
once you start playing with those cards, I'm telling you guys, you're not
Yeah.
going to want to get off of them because they are insanely good. Being able to take an extra turn when there's effectively 3 other players and you have to wait basically 3 turns until you get your next turn is
When
just
one player has tried
insanely
to
well.
resolve something, got a bunch of stuff countered, and before they move to the next player's turn, you're like, you know what? I think I will take my turn.
Right, or even if you're just like, you know what, like I've just been sitting here and you think I'm going to activate Thrasios. Well, actually, now that everyone just burned all their stuff, I'm going to crop rot and get Emergent Zone and win on top of you.
And here's the thing too. These are the utility cases of Final Fortune. This isn't
Yeah.
even the primary reason I was thinking of when I brought these cards in the deck.
Oh yeah,
Because that would actually be Necropotence and Ad Nauseam.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Yeah, Necro, it makes your Naus so smooth because you just have to get 2 red and then you Final Fortune and then you
It's
win.
virtually impossible to whiff on a Nas when you have Final Fortune in the deck.
It is pretty hard, yeah.
You're able to even go something as easy as like Simian Spirit Guide, Rite of Flame, Final Fortune, or
Right.
you can play out like Mox and then maybe offer you can't refuse
I mean,
on a Mox Amp or something like that,
Yeah.
and
Oh,
now
yeah.
you can cast Final Fortune.
Yeah, and even though this deck doesn't have like the lowest overall CMC, all the mana acceleration that you get from the extra bit of mana acceleration you get from playing green is
very
sizable.
fast mana is
That you're not whiffing Nauses.
it's very hard. I have not yet to see.
I mean, you will like Nas decks. It's just something that happens.
On a long
happens.
enough timeline, yes.
The variants will catch up to you, but it's very rare. It's similar to like Rock Silas. It's almost impossible to whiff on a Nas in that deck as well. It's very hard.
Right.
Even from like 30 life, you usually will get there. I mean, the Nas CMC.
I
we can
definitely
look
say
at
it's easier to whiff with this deck
It
than it
is.
is
Oh,
with
for sure.
Rock Stylist,
Yeah.
But
I'd
I
agree.
think this deck is also like a better Nas deck than Blue Farm. You're
that.
gonna
Oh yeah, that's why it cuts the line right between. Like that's the comparison we want with this deck is like, if you want something that is able to grind a little bit better than like Rogsai, like you're playing into a little bit more stacks, you're playing into a little bit more like mid-range meta, you might want to play
Or
this
just,
deck
like-
over Rogsai and the
Well,
fact
yeah.
that you're
And
able to
also
grind.
like a.
Also,
I was
I
gonna
maybe like
Oh, you want to go?
yeah,
I'll let
you can go, Alex.
yeah, just something quickly. I
Yeah.
think the comparison with Rog Silas is it's maybe a little unfair to say that Nas is worse because pretty much every deck Nas is worse. And the reason being that you don't have the same number of initial mana sources with that Rograk enables.
Yeah.
But if you look at a lot of these, Storm sort of decks in Grixis, this is like the exact same and maybe better. And
Yeah,
a lot of
for
ways.
sure, for sure.
And so I feel like this compares really favorably to something like Krom Tavesh or
Mm-hmm.
a lot of these like Krom decks or like Jeleva.
Mm-hmm.
I don't
Which
know.
is
I
one of
feel
your
like
decks.
I feel like this is it's a more attractive option for those reasons.
Yeah, I was just trying to get like the comparison dialed down and the fact that it's basically a deck between those two,
Mhm.
and it's awesome. Honestly, it's a really fun deck. I've been playing it on Cockatrice a little bit, and then he's been playing in tournaments and
Won me a plateau 2 weeks ago.
Did win him a plateau, which was sick.
And then
I think it was a 40-person tournament, right, or something
private
like that.
league.
Yeah. Won a private league too with us, which was sick. So we have our own little leagues going on, but it's a great deck. It's been really cool. Let's see, we can start getting into, I guess, the little packages that we have going on.
Yeah,
probably
sure.
like the Necro Final Fortune, I think was the first one we have here.
Yeah, I'd say that's probably one of the more prominent ones.
Right.
And so
I'll go over to Necropotence right here.
So one of the reasons why I wanted to focus on Necropotence was I felt like this card, I've played sort of like these turbo ad nauseum and fast black decks in the EDH for a very long time, and Necropotence was always an old all-star, and for a while I just saw it fall off. And the reason people were saying was because I'm seeing too many wheels, or there are too many downsides. Having to wait for the cards is a major drawback.
Right.
So I thought about all those and considered that, but I still wanted to try playing it again because I felt like the individual power of this card was through the roof. There's a reason why it's restricted in Vintage. I'm just going to say that. And it's not available for play in Legacy. So, so by diversifying the number of bombs, the deck becomes less vulnerable to getting locked in a game plan where you're just like thinking, okay, well, I need a tutor for ad nauseum here, and then everyone else knows that, so then they counter the ad nauseum, and then it's a huge disaster. Right. If you're doing that sort of effect with 3 mana, then you can slip it underneath it a little bit better. And don't forget, this is castable just off of a Dark Ritual.
Yeah. People are shoring up to this again with I think Rog Silas are now playing this again, and then for some other.
I'm really happy to see that
Blue Farm is back on this, or at least
some pilots are playing.
Some pilots are playing. They're coming back to it.
It's not like, why would you play this?
Right.
Like it was maybe 6 months ago.
Exactly.
But you know what? I'll say this though. Move over, Zur. This is the Necropotence deck.
That's funny. Another thing we can get into is like the Final Fortune thing. So if people don't know, since Necro says you put them into your hand at the beginning of your next end step, you can still Final Fortune on your end step and then take your next turn if you get a pile that's good enough to win. So it's effectively like a Naus in that case.
Correct.
Where you can Necro for like 30.
Function.
Yeah, if you really want to go for a win and you think you can just Necro for 30 cards, and then if you have 2 red up, you can just Final Fortune on your end step, and then go to your next turn, and now you just have a pile.
In a lot of cases, it's correct to just dig for 30 cards or so with Necropotence. It compares pretty favorably to Ad Nauseam, actually.
Right.
But I would say if you have even 1 mana open, oftentimes it's favored because you have a number of ways to cast the Final Fortune.
Right.
Don't forget, you can even do something as simple as cast Noxious Revival, cast Offer You Can't Refuse on that, generate the 2 treasures, and then Final Fortune. Or if you have the 1 mana open, you can simply just play a Spirit Guide and say, okay.
If you have like 3 mana open, you can pretty much just dump into this and expect to like maybe Tainted Pack for Final Fortune, or like do something to, or
correct,
or search for your crop rotation.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a very solid card. We can talk a little bit about Dark Petition here. So usually with this, are you like tutoring and then getting Necro, or is this just like a solid tutor that you've been throwing in?
It's not a card you see very often.
It's not. Yeah, this is a good pick here.
Yeah, this is a card that's fallen out of favor, but I feel like if you look at Vintage, right, this used to be a really premier card in the format. Dark Petition Storm was no joke. That's directly descended from all these Storm decks from the past, like the Perfect Storm, which is something that's like, I feel is pretty similar to this deck in a lot of ways. You look at like the original Long deck, so like that whole lineage, Dark Petition was a really powerful card in there, and there's very good reasons for that. Dark Petition is a demonic tutor almost always, unless there's a Rest in Peace in play. That's pretty much the only thing that stops it from that mode.
Right.
But even so, here's the thing though, even if you're not like getting a card with Dark Petition to immediately win the game, that like, let's say an Ad Nauseam or an Underworld Breach, okay, you still have exactly enough for Necropotence to still cast Yawgmoth's Will.
Right.
Both those are really strong options, I feel.
Yeah.
And so I feel like this card is probably better than something like Grim Tutor. You can look at the 5 CMC and say, oh, well, this is going to hurt off Ad Nauseam, and that's true. But the bottom line for that is always the number of mana sources to gas. It's always like that ratio. It's never about like individual card hurts me too much. This is I mean that's why
people play,
this is still played.
Right. People play what's that? The kill spell in black. I forgot what it's called. That's like the commander. Deadly Rollick.
Yeah.
And like they play that in Rogsai, and it's amazing. I played in my Rogsai list, and it's like, yeah, you can hit it, and it's 5 CMC, and you're like, or is it 5? Yeah, 4. It should be 5. It's 4. Okay, 4 CMC. It's still like, damn, it's 4 CMC. But like, just the fact that it's a free kill spell is just like, why not? Like, I'd rather play this over Slaughter.
Already so efficient.
Yeah, your Naus is already so efficient in this deck. It's okay to like throw in, a 1/5 CMC card that has its upsides of it. You can Dark Petition, grab Necro. You can Dark Petition, grab like something else that helps you now cast into your, Peer into the Abyss. Or actually, what's really good, and one of the best, in my opinion, one of the best spells in green right now for turbo decks. Culling Ritual. So
Oh, baby.
Dark Petitioning, you have one green up, and then you Dark Petition, or one green after you Dark Petition. Now you have 3 black and 1 green, and it's so beautiful. This card is like...
And this also goes the opposite direction, too. Dark Petition also increases the number of options. Yeah, the number of payouts that just will win the game on the spot after the Culling Ritual.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is very, very solid. Culling Ritual is, in my opinion, probably like one of the best board wipes for a turbo deck. It literally does 2 things in one. It kills everything that's stopping you, basically. Borderline everything that's stopping you. Most stacks pieces, I play a lot of stacks. They're usually like 1 to 2 mana. You want to get them down quick, like Deafening Silence, Rest in Peace, Aether Sworn. I mean, I can go on, the list goes on. The only thing it's not killing is like those bigger Archons and all that stuff, but like usually those are just like the one-up pieces that you can also try to remove, but even then, it's just...
So this card also compares really favorably that way.
It does, yeah. It also, the other side is add black or green for each permanent. That includes your own. But you don't really, you're playing a turbo deck, you don't care too much about your permanents. And they're usually just, you'd rather them become mana, to be honest. Because I've seen Culling Ritual go straight into Pure in the Abyss more times than I can count. Like, it is disgusting.
Here's another fun one, too. If you're casting Culling Ritual, and then you cast Yawgmoth's Will afterwards, you play out all the fast mana rocks again.
Yeah,
which is that is insane, yeah.
So, as far as I'm concerned, this card, it's not as good as Dockside, but it's pretty close. It's approaching that level. If it has mana value 3 or less, then I think it would be equal to Dockside.
It might be better.
I mean, I don't think it would be equal to Dockside, because Dockside still has like ways that you can like loop it, which makes it really strong. But when you're not doing any of the like crazy shenanigans with Dockside, where you're just like winning the game off of like looping it and, you know, using any of the combos that work with it,
that's true.
This card it's very strong and comparable to it.
Yeah, this is an all-star in any green-black turbo deck. I think every green-black turbo deck should be running this card, and I've seen it win so many more games than like someone having to, you know, go grab like Psych Rift and then like Psych Rift on someone's end step, or someone grabbing Deluge. You know, it only gets rid of things temporarily or permanently, but you don't get anything back. This is a 2-for-1. This is literally a 2-for-1 in a card, which is what you want when you're trying to win.
More than that often.
It's a 2-for-1. That 2-for-1's every person at the table.
Right, yeah. It's a 2-for... Yeah. It's like an 8-for-1.
that also puts you ahead in tempo, because you then get to play your next card in hand.
Right.
Or all the cards in hand.
No joke. I've actually had games where I cast Culling Ritual and fed activations into Thrasios with the mana, because I didn't have anything to do with it, but set back the other players.
Yeah, that is just ridiculous. All right, so we've gone over that package. We can talk a little bit about the Crop Rot like emergence zone and how you want to like quote unquote, you know, sandbag with the deck, and how it can actually do it very well. So you can talk about that.
Yeah, so if we look at crop rotation, the only 2 targets that we have in the deck realistically are Ancient Tomb and Emergent Zone.
Right.
And some people might think, okay, well, what about Boseiju? But I feel like that card almost fills the same role as Emergent Zone, only inferior. Boseiju just feels like it has too many restrictions to continue playing in this format without at least like having Golos in the command zone.
Yeah, we're talking about the older Boseiju, by the way, the one that makes your spells uncounterable. Just so people clarify that, because the new one is very well played.
Yeah, that is actually a good point. Thank you.
Yeah.
I think it's playable in metas where you like, say if you like really just need to resolve a Culling Ritual and then go off. But if that's not something that you like always find yourself needing to do,
that could be a flex slot. You could do that.
It is definitely a flex spot.
Perfectly fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel like Emergent Zone almost does the same thing, where you're able to go in and play on someone else's turn and try to dodge interaction that way. Because the unexpected factor is really big with this card.
when everyone's
Emergent Zone
playing,
catches people off guard all the time.
when everyone's trying to win on their turn, this is almost the Yeva effect, where you can sandbag really efficiently. And like some people, I don't like sandbag, but it's not really sandbagging when you've kind of like built your deck to do it, and everyone kind of should know, but you get to be kind of sneaky. And like Yeva, like everyone knows what's happening with like that, and the whole deck's dedicated. People like don't respect as much because mono green, so you get percentage points there. But for this deck, it's like people are like, that's weird. He has like a bunch of mana up. He has green. He has like 5 cards in hand. I don't really like. People aren't gonna like overanalyze it so much, and then someone tries to go off for their win because they're like, time's running out. I gotta try to win this game, and they're just like, all right, I'm gonna go for the win, and everyone just fights for it, and then like it gets through somehow, or
dust settles.
It doesn't. Yeah, dust settles, and you're just like sick, and the guy's like, I'm gonna go to my end step, and you're like, all right, I'm gonna tap for green, sack one of my lands, I'm gonna get Emergent Zone, and they're like, okay, I'm gonna crack Emergent Zone. And
being able to abuse the fact that this is a 4-player format and take advantage of the like hidden resources of other players by using this instant speed package is super valuable.
It's totally true,
very valuable,
and gets you a number of wins that you just cannot get with other decks.
Think about like scenarios where you're sitting at a balance table, right? Where there's some number of mid-range. Let's say you're playing against another mid-range deck, or not another, a mid-range deck, another turbo deck. You're both playing mid-range at this point, where I'm describing this, right? And there's a stacks deck, and so it's kind of a balance table, right? If the turbo player fights to remove stacks and try to win, you let them get stopped by the mid-range player, and then you go and win yourself because they've spent resources to clear out this roadblock, and now you're going to benefit from it.
Yeah. So yeah, these are the nice utility cards. We're really pushing the fact that adding green, which is what this deck does, is just add green to that like turbo package, and still making it low to the ground, really gives you those utility cards that you don't get to play with usually, and people aren't really used to playing with right now, because I haven't seen too many like green turbo decks or as much into the meta, which is nice. We can start going into like the weaknesses of this deck. So what are like the big weaknesses that you see with this deck?
So yeah, some of the weaknesses I'd look at, the mana requirements are difficult. This is something
you
I've
can go look at the mana base with
with
that as well.
Yeah. So let's look at the mana base here. Okay, I've talked about Ancient Tomb and Emergent Zone. What else do we have? Well, we're playing all the 6 duels that we can.
Right.
We're playing all the fetch lands we can, and then we're playing 8 rainbow lands. That's it.
Yeah.
No shock lands, no battle bond lands.
Took you a while to get there, and it might seem a little weird, like, oh, this is like a lazy mana base, like he just put all the rainbow lands in. But Alex has been testing the deck, and he's realized that the more lands that are rainbow, the more keepable hands you have, because you're like, oh, cool, like if this was a battle bond land, I wouldn't have green here. Now I can't play this card, and it's like, shit, I wish I had they're
just very often
rainbow
hands that you have where you would need a certain color on maybe turn 1, and that doesn't overlap with any of the colors that you need on turn 2.
Yeah.
So what I was finding with Ikram was every time I was getting a really nice hand, it was because I had some number of rainbow lands and fetch lands, or multiple fetch lands.
Right. Which this mana base kind of covers. Forbidden Orchard, I guess, is like the small little pick that you have here that some people don't really play.
Gemstone Mine.
Or in Gemstone Mine as well. These two, I feel like Gemstone Mine is getting close to being almost auto included in any like really fast turbo deck, because let's be real, if you're using it more than 3 times, like the game's already gone more grindy, and you don't really want to go there too often, which is obviously a technical weakness of this deck. It is a turbo deck.
Correct.
But like this gives you that mana fixing that you want early, and the downside of losing the land later is like very negligible.
I find it compares favorably to like Tarnished Citadel.
Oh yeah,
especially when you want to reduce your number of lands to a lower than normal amount. Like we're on 26 here, which is like very low. And so like one of the most important things you need to do is just make sure that your mana works when you are cutting down on lands. And so like one of the ways that you do so is by just like adding more lands that are going to fix for every color, right? So you can deal with those problems.
Right.
And I feel like secretly one of the best lands in this deck is actually Forbidden Orchard.
Mhm.
This card gets a lot of hate, but I think most of this comes from Tymna players, because when
Yeah.
you're playing it as a Tymna deck, it's terrible.
Right.
Tymna is not going to get in because you're actively giving opponents blockers. But what happens when you're playing this deck? Well, you're throwing blockers in front of other people's Tymnas. You're playing... Here's what you're doing, okay? One person has a Tymna, and then you have a 1/3 in play in Thrasios, and you're giving somebody else a 1/1. You're drastically limiting the number of attackers that are going to get in with the Tymna, and you're limiting their draws that way.
Yeah.
On top of that, this is just like this is a very generic land that will fix your mana, right? It doesn't even cost you life.
No. Yeah. It's a very good card. What you want to do with it if you're playing against a Winota player is give them all the spirits. That's not endorsed by any Winota players ever.
No.
Yeah. So
Of course not.
Always
As the
give
Winota player slides you a 20 under the table.
Yeah. Make sure that they PayPal you after the game, not during, so that you're not, caught for collusion. But no, but actually, yeah, there are downsides to the land, like giving it to Tymna players, giving it to Winota players. But actually, what you could do is, give it to the other players that want to block things, and now people can't swing into them. So it's actually kind of an upside land sometimes, and that doesn't deal damage to you, and it fixes perfectly. So it's one of the few that honestly can do that.
Yeah. That's kind of what this deck is about. You want to be flexible and change some of these
Very
downsides into
flexible,
upsides.
yeah, for sure. Another weakness we can go over is, like, you're not really playing any of the forces except for Force of Will. You don't have Force of Vigor as well in there, but usually, I mean,
You lose
most
a little
don't play
bit
that
on
anyways.
your interaction package.
Yeah.
This deck.
The interaction
Yeah.
package is very me-centric, it's very an individual, like, I'm winning.
It's
mine.
pretty selfish the way that's tuned right now.
Minimal. Yeah.
Yeah, which is normal for a turbo deck. You're not trying to, like, stop other people. You're running Force of Will, obviously, great card. You got the Pact of Negation, amazing for yourself. And, we kind of slotted in the defense grid. We thought about putting in, like, Mindbreak Trap, Force of Negation, and we kind of talked about that. Those might be included in the future, but for right now, this is kind of the package that we have.
Yeah.
Oh.
If this is suboptimal right now, that's only because this comes from Ikram, and that deck, I feel, plays Force Negation very poorly. It does
Right.
not support these cards very well at all, because you rarely have a blue card to pitch, and if you do, oftentimes it's another piece of counter magic, or it's
Or
like
it's a win con.
Yeah,
or it's just like...
it's going to be like
so
your
many
windfall that you needed.
Windfall,
or your
Time
Mist Remora.
Twister, Ristic Study. Like, blue is a great color in cEDH. Don't get it wrong. Blue has really good singular cards like Force of Will, Pact of Negation, Ristic Study, Mist Remora. Like, they're very strong cards.
That's the thing.
but
You're
you-
gonna be itching cards
What-
that
yeah,
you
yeah,
like.
Yeah.
Once you take those away, though, like, blue doesn't offer too much. That's why you start going into, like, the red and black and green. So
The
you can
win
add these other
cons
stuff.
beyond the busted cards of like Mr. Ristic Study and then the Wheels and Oracle. There's just the only blue cards that you're pretty much playing are bounce spells and
Mhm.
other counter spells.
Right. And the thing is that sucks with these forces is you have to pitch away. I think a big inclusion that maybe we could see in the future is honestly I've loved Mindbreak Trap and Rock Silas.
Yeah,
And it doesn't. You don't
I've
have to.
definitely thought about it too.
You don't have to pitch anything, which is like the nicest thing, and it's free. And also, when you're doing the Crop Rot Emergent Zone type of thing, if someone casts 3 spells on their turn, you go, oh, sick. Now if I do my Emergent Zone line, I have backup for free. Because now automatically Mindbreak is online, and so you're like, sick. So that's the cool thing is you can mold different spells tailored for your meta, which is nice. But the forces for weaknesses, like the forces are hard to fit in the deck. You don't have a lot to pitch to them.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah,
And because this deck is like 4 color, you have so many options for sideboard slots based on like what your meta is. Like you can play if you want to go faster, you can put in like Grim Monolith. If you need more removal, you can try like Boseiju and Otawara.
Right.
If your meta stacks here and you just also need to hit more land drops, you can try those. There's just like a number of options that you have for this deck.
You can adjust this very much based on your metagame.
It's the sideboard like agility of playing 4 and 5 color. That's the best, one of the best reasons to play
you get
high
access.
color.
You get access to all of the staples, so you want to put in like all of these great cards into your main deck, and you're kind of struggling with these last few slots because they're stepping on each other's toes. You only have so many. You only have so much room, so you have to make some cuts where it's necessary.
Yeah.
But
these are always.
I don't have all the answers on that.
Yeah, these are always inclusions for meta. That's when we say like you should be tailoring to your meta, because really that's what you should be doing with any format, anything. If you're expecting to play Murktide in Modern every time, you should be teching against Murktide. So if you're going into cEDH tournaments and you're playing against a ton of mid-range decks, you should be putting in like, you know, Veils and putting in your defense grids and putting in your Crop Rod Emergence Zone to like instant speed win. So it's kind of like that stuff, and then having the flexibility is like the biggest thing with this deck. Like we said, agility. This deck is definitely extremely flexible and extremely fun, honestly. This is a really cool list that I've watched Alex kind of pilot over the years. Or not years, but over the... How long have you been playing it for? Probably months.
I mean,
couple months.
4 months.
Yeah,
you tested it out like really...
But
like,
you've been playing Turbo for so many years, it's nice to get all those ideas into a
Yeah,
deck.
exactly.
Yeah, which is awesome.
This is really like following the same vein of thought I've had since I was playing Ikram, so if you want to consider that, then
a year and a half ago.
Correct. Yeah.
a year
So
and a half
I've been
of
circling.
really testing.
Yeah, I've been circling around this concept for a long time, and now I feel like I'm really hitting the sweet spot.
That's definitely awesome. Okay, well, I think with that we have pretty much the deck tech done. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you guys want to have some final thoughts, final notes, you guys can go ahead.
I'll say for myself, I'd love to see more other people
pilots,
just more people discussing this deck would be great. I would love some more thoughts for the Vile Storm.
Mm-hmm.
TVS can be improved, I'm sure of it. It just needs more people working on it.
Is the truth.
It's been doing amazing. The truth, yeah. People have been calling their deck list, the truth, the like all these other like funny names, which I like. I like the Vile Storm though. It's cool. It has a TVS. It's like the Epic Storm. There's some other ones right.
The Perfect Storm.
The Perfect Storm. Like they roll off the tongue nicely, which is cool. But yeah, anyways, thank you guys for listening to our deck tech, and I hope to see you guys back.
Yeah. Bye. Take care, everybody.
See you in the next one.